The abduction. Alex groaned as he opened his eyes, his head pounding like he'd just woken up from the worst hangover of his life. Except he didn't remember drinking. In fact, the last thing he remembered was, what? Sitting on his couch, watching TV. The memory was fuzzy, like a dream he couldn't quite grasp. He tried to sit up but realized he couldn't move. His arms and legs were strapped to a cold, metallic chair. Around him, strange lights flickered, casting an eerie glow across the room. The walls looked like they were made of liquid metal, shifting and shimmering as if alive. Machines hummed softly in the background, their noises alien and unsettling. "Where am I?" Alex muttered, his voice hoarse. Panic began to creep in as he struggled against the restraints. What the hell is going on? Suddenly, a door slid open with a soft whoosh. 3 tall figures stepped into the room, their features hidden under flowing robes and helmets that gleamed under the strange light. They were clearly not human. Their movements were too fluid, their presence too unnerving. Alex froze, his breath catching in his throat. One of them stepped closer, towering over him. The helmet retracted, revealing a face that was both beautiful and terrifying. The skin was a pale blue, the eyes large and glowing, with a faint luminescence that seemed to peer straight into his soul. When it spoke, its voice echoed, as though it carried across dimensions. "Human," the figure said, its tone calm but commanding. "You have been chosen." "Chosen?" Alex blurted out, his voice rising. "Chosen for what? Who are you? What is this place?" The alien tilted its head, as if studying him. "You are on the vessel of the Zirion royal fleet. Your selection was predetermined. The stars have spoken." Alex blinked, his mind racing to keep up. "Predetermined? Stars? Look, there's been some kind of mistake. I didn't sign up for whatever this is." The alien ignored his protests and gestured to the other 2 figures. They moved swiftly, unstrapping Alex from the chair. He tried to resist, but their strength was overwhelming. Before he could fully grasp what was happening, they were dragging him down a long corridor. The walls pulsed with strange patterns, as if the ship itself was alive. "Wait!" Alex shouted, struggling against their grip. "Let me go. You've got the wrong guy." His pleas fell on deaf ears as they reached a massive doorway. It slid open with a hiss, revealing a grand chamber that made Alex's jaw drop. The room was enormous, with a ceiling so high it disappeared into darkness. Strange alien symbols glowed on the walls, and in the center of the room was a throne made of shimmering crystal. Seated upon it was a figure even more regal and intimidating than the others. It was a woman. At least Alex thought so. Her features were sharp and elegant, her silver hair cascading like a waterfall. She wore a flowing gown that seemed to ripple like water, and a crown floated above her head, not touching it, as if held there by some unseen force. Her golden eyes locked onto Alex, and for a moment he forgot how to breathe. The guards shoved him forward, and he stumbled to his knees. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice trembling now. "Why am I here?" The regal figure leaned forward, her expression unreadable. "You are here," she said, her voice cold and melodic, "because the fate of 2 worlds depends on you." Alex stared at her, dumbfounded. "Me? What are you talking about? I'm just a guy. I work on cars, for crying out loud." "You've got the wrong person." The woman raised an eyebrow, her lips curving into the faintest hint of a smirk. "We shall see. Guards, prepare him." Before Alex could protest, another door opened, and even more aliens entered the room. They carried strange devices that hummed with energy. Panic surged through Alex as they approached him. "Wait, wait, wait," he shouted, trying to back away. "Prepare me for what? Someone tell me what's going on." One of the aliens pressed a device to his temple, and a rush of information flooded his mind. Images of alien planets, battles, and prophecies flashed before his eyes, too fast for him to process. He gasped, clutching his head as the visions overwhelmed him. When it finally stopped, he looked up at the regal woman, his heart racing. What was that?" he whispered. She stood and descended the steps of her throne, each movement graceful and deliberate. "You," she said, her voice sharp, "are the one destined to unite our worlds. Through you, peace can be achieved. But only if you agree." "Agree to what?" Alex croaked, his throat dry. The woman stopped a few feet away from him, her golden eyes narrowing. "To marry me." For a moment, Alex thought he hadn't heard her correctly. He blinked, his brain struggling to process the words. "Wait, what?" The room fell silent. All the aliens stared at him, their expressions unreadable. Finally, Alex found his voice, though it came out more as a squeak than a shout. "Wait, you want me to be your wife?" he exclaimed, his voice echoing through the chamber. The woman's face darkened, and her gaze turned icy. "Husband," she corrected sharply. "The term is husband. And yes, human, I do." Alex's mind reeled as he stared at her, utterly speechless. He had no idea what he'd just gotten himself into, but one thing was clear. This was only the beginning. The royal dilemma. The grand throne room was still buzzing with tension after Alex's outburst. The alien princess, now glaring at him with an expression that could freeze a sun, crossed her arms. Her silver hair shimmered as if it held a galaxy within, but her eyes were sharp, unyielding. "This is ridiculous," the princess spat, turning to her father, the king of the Zirithians. "You expect me to marry this primitive creature? Look at him. He's clumsy, he reeks of fear, and he doesn't even understand where he is." "Hey," Alex interjected, still kneeling. "I'm right here, you know. And for the record, I didn't sign up for this either." The king, a towering figure with skin like molten gold, raised a hand to silence both of them. His deep voice reverberated through the chamber, commanding respect. "Enough. The prophecy is clear. The survival of our people, and his, is at stake. This union must happen." Survival. Alex finally stood, his legs shaky but fueled by growing frustration. "Can someone explain to me why my survival suddenly depends on getting hitched to a woman who clearly hates me?" The princess shot him a look that could kill, but her father answered instead. "The Zirithian Council discovered an ancient prophecy," he explained, pacing down the steps of his throne. "It foretold a union between our kind and a human, one who would unite our worlds and prevent a great calamity." Alex blinked. Calamity? What kind of calamity? The king hesitated, his expression darkening. "An intergalactic war. If the union doesn't happen, it will begin with your world." Alex felt his stomach drop. "Wait, Earth, you're saying my planet is going to get dragged into some alien war if I don't marry her?" "That is correct," the king said gravely. The princess groaned loudly, throwing up her hands. "This is absurd. There are billions of humans on his planet. Why him? Surely there's someone better." The king's eyes flashed, his patience wearing thin. "The stars have chosen him, Taylora. The prophecy was specific. Only this human can fulfill the role." "Chosen by the stars," Alex muttered, still trying to wrap his head around it. "Do the stars have a sense of humor, or are they just crazy?" The princess turned to Alex, her golden eyes narrowing. "Let's get one thing straight, human. I'm agreeing to this only because I care about my people. Don't think for a second that I'm happy about this." "Well, the feeling's mutual, princess," Alex shot back. "I'd rather be back on Earth fixing engines than playing Romeo in your alien prophecy." Silence. The king roared, his voice shaking the chamber. Both Alex and Taylora froze. The king's gaze softened slightly as he looked at his daughter. "Taylora, you are a Zirithian princess. You have a duty to your people. If this union can save us, you must do it." Taylora clenched her fists, clearly torn between duty and her pride. "Fine," she said through gritted teeth. I'll do it, but don't expect me to make it easy for him. Alex raised an eyebrow. Make what easy? The princess smirked, a dangerous glint in her eye. If you want to marry me, human, you'll need to prove you're worthy. We have traditions, rituals, tests. And if you fail even one of them, the deal is off. Wait, you're telling me I have to pass some kind of alien obstacle course just to save my planet? Alex groaned. Why can't anything in my life be simple? You'll find life among the Zirithians is rarely simple, Taylora said coldly. But don't worry, I'll make sure you feel every second of it. Later that night, after the dramatic announcement, Alex was escorted to his quarters, a small, high-tech room that felt more like a prison cell. The walls glowed softly, and a strange energy field hummed faintly at the door. It was clear they didn't fully trust him yet. He flopped onto the strange, cushion-like bed, rubbing his temples. This can't be real, he muttered to himself. I must have hit my head. Yeah, that's it. I'll wake up any second now, and I'll be back home in my apartment. But the cold, unyielding reality didn't change. He was stuck on an alien ship, engaged to a princess who clearly despised him, with the fate of Earth hanging over his head. Prove I'm worthy, he scoffed, thinking about Taylora's challenge. How the hell am I supposed to do that? I'm not a hero. I'm not even good at public speaking. Just then, the door slid open, and one of the guards entered, carrying a strange, glowing device. Human, the guard said in a clipped tone. You will begin your training tomorrow. Her Highness has personally requested a rigorous schedule. Alex groaned. Of course she has. The guard didn't react to his sarcasm. Rest now. You'll need it. As the door closed, Alex stared at the ceiling, his thoughts racing. He wasn't sure how he'd gotten into this mess, but one thing was clear. The princess was going to make his life a living hell. And yet, a tiny part of him wondered, was there more to her than the cold, stubborn exterior? He sighed. One step at a time. Alex, just survive tomorrow. But deep down, he knew survival was only the beginning. Training for the role. The next morning, Alex woke to the sound of an alarm that was unlike anything he'd ever heard. It wasn't the obnoxious beeping of his old Earth alarm clock. No, this was a deep, resonating hum that vibrated through his bones, followed by a cold, metallic voice. Human, report to the Hall of Ascension. Training begins immediately. Groggy and disoriented, Alex rubbed his eyes and swung his legs off the bed. The soft, glowing walls of his quarters pulsed with a rhythmic light, as though urging him to move. Yeah, I'm coming, he muttered, stumbling to his feet. He had barely gotten used to walking on the slightly uneven floors of the Zirithian ship. The door slid open, and two guards stood waiting for him, their expressions unreadable behind their sleek helmets. One of them held out a bundle of strange, flowing garments. What's this? Alex asked, eyeing the bundle suspiciously. Your ceremonial attire for the training, the guard replied. Alex frowned. It looks like a mix between a bathrobe and a toga. The guard didn't respond, simply staring at him until Alex sighed in defeat. Fine. Give it here. After an awkward struggle to put on the alien clothing, which was uncomfortably tight in places he didn't want to think about, Alex followed the guards through the ship's labyrinthine corridors. The Hall of Ascension was nothing like the throne room he had seen before. It was a massive circular arena, with glowing panels that shifted colors beneath his feet and walls lined with alien hieroglyphs. A crowd of Zirithians had gathered in the upper balconies, their eyes glowing faintly as they watched him with quiet curiosity. At the center of the arena stood Princess Taylora, clad in sleek, form-fitting battle armor that made her look even more intimidating than usual. Her golden eyes narrowed as Alex approached, her lips curving into a smirk. You're late, she said, crossing her arms. Alex looked around in confusion. Late? The guards just woke me up. Excuses, she replied coldly. Let's see if you handle challenges better than you handle mornings. Alex groaned inwardly. He had a feeling this was going to be a long day. The first test, alien etiquette. Taylor gestured toward a table set up at the edge of the arena, laden with strange, colorful objects. Some looked like food, others like tools or weapons. Alex couldn't tell. Your first task, the princess announced loudly, her voice echoing through the chamber, is to demonstrate your understanding of Zirion customs. You will identify the purpose of each item on this table and use it appropriately. Alex blinked. I hate to break it to you, but I have no idea what any of this stuff is. That's the point, Taylor said, smirking. You'll have to figure it out. Murmurs of amusement rippled through the watching crowd as Alex stepped hesitantly toward the table. He picked up a small, cube-shaped object that vibrated slightly in his hand. Okay, he muttered to himself. What are you supposed to be? He cautiously pressed a button on the side of the cube, and it suddenly expanded into a glowing sphere that floated above his palm. A holographic projection appeared, displaying a series of Zirion symbols. Interesting, Alex said, pretending he knew what he was doing. This must be a map. The crowd erupted into laughter, and even Taylor let out a faint chuckle. That is a grooming sphere, she said. It's used to style hair. Alex groaned. Of course it is. He moved to the next item, a long metallic rod with glowing blue lines running along its length. He hesitated before gripping it, half expecting it to explode. To his surprise, the rod began to hum and emit a faint warm light. Let me guess, Alex said dryly. This is some kind of weapon. Incorrect, Taylor said. That is a ceremonial staff used during royal gatherings. But I must admit, you do look like you're about to duel someone. Great, Alex muttered, placing it back on the table. Next time, just give me a quiz or something. The second test, physical trials. After thoroughly embarrassing himself during the etiquette test, Alex was led to the center of the arena, where a Zirion combat instructor waited. The instructor, a massive alien with 4 arms and a permanent scowl, tossed Alex what looked like a sleek, lightweight baton. What am I supposed to do with this? Alex asked nervously. Survive, the instructor said simply. Before Alex could ask what he meant, the instructor activated his own baton, which transformed into a glowing blade. With a roar, the alien lunged at Alex, forcing him to dive out of the way. Are you kidding me? Alex shouted, scrambling to his feet. I thought this was training, not a death match. Consider it both, Taylor called out from the sidelines, clearly enjoying his struggle. The crowd roared with approval as Alex dodged another strike, his heart racing. He had no idea how to fight, let alone against a 4-armed alien with a glowing sword. Desperation kicked in as he swung his baton wildly, accidentally hitting the instructor's leg. To his surprise, the alien stumbled slightly, giving Alex an opening to back away. Not bad, human, the instructor said, his tone begrudgingly impressed. You've got spirit, if nothing else. The final trial of the day. Bruised and exhausted, Alex was barely standing when Taylor approached him, holding a small glowing orb. You've survived the day, she said, her tone neutral. But there's one final task. What now? Alex groaned. You want me to juggle flaming swords? Nothing so dramatic, she replied, handing him the orb. This is a mind-link sphere. It will allow us to share thoughts and emotions. You'll need to use it to prove you can understand me, truly understand me. Alex hesitated, staring at the orb. And if I can't? Then this whole union is pointless, she said simply. With no other choice, Alex placed his hand on the orb. A rush of emotions and memories flooded his mind. Taylor's childhood, her struggles to live up to her father's expectations, her fear of failing her people. For the first time, he saw her not as a cold, unfeeling princess, but as someone who carried a heavy burden. When the link ended, Alex looked at her. His expression softened. You're Not what I expected, he said quietly. Taylora stared at him, her icy demeanor cracking just slightly. Neither are you, human. For the first time, there was no hostility in her voice, only curiosity. But as they locked eyes, Alex knew this was only the beginning of their trials, the hidden threat. Alex sat cross-legged in the quiet chamber assigned to him, the soft glow of the walls flickering like candlelight. Despite the exhausting day of training, his mind was restless. The memory of the mind-link orb still lingered, haunting him. For a brief moment, he had seen into Princess Taylora's mind. The crushing expectations, the fear of failure, and the loneliness behind her sharp words. It didn't make her any easier to deal with, but it made her more human. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft click. The door to his chamber slid open, and an unfamiliar figure entered. This Zirion didn't wear the ornate robes or polished armor of the others. Instead, their attire was dark and unassuming, and their face was obscured by a hood. Alex scrambled to his feet. Can I help you?" The figure stepped closer, their voice a low whisper. "Quiet, human. You're in danger." "Danger?" Alex frowned. "I thought being stuck on this ship and forced into marriage was the danger." The figure didn't laugh. Instead, they glanced around nervously before pulling back their hood to reveal a scared, pale blue face. Their eyes gleamed with urgency. "This is no joke. The royal family isn't telling you everything." "What are you talking about?" Alex asked, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The prophecy," the stranger said. "It's not about peace. It's about power. The royal family wants this union to secure their control over both our worlds. But there are those of us who see the truth." Alex crossed his arms. "And let me guess, you're one of those truth-seers." The stranger leaned in, their expression deadly serious. "If this union happens, Earth will become a vassal to the Zirion Empire. Your people will lose their freedom. Is that what you want?" Alex's stomach twisted. He'd been so focused on surviving the training and the princess's tests that he hadn't even considered the bigger picture. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're the only one who can stop it," the stranger replied. "You're the weak link in their plan. Without you, the prophecy falls apart." Alex shook his head, trying to process this new information. "So, what? You want me to sabotage the wedding? Do you have any idea what they'll do to me and to Earth if I back out?" The stranger placed a small glowing device in his hand. "You don't have to decide now. But if you truly care about your people, use this when the time is right. It's a signal disruptor. It will shut down their fleet's communication systems and give us, the resistance, a chance to strike." Alex stared at the device, his mind racing. Was this person telling the truth, or was it some kind of trap? Before he could ask more questions, the stranger disappeared as quickly as they had arrived, leaving Alex alone with the disruptor and a sinking feeling in his chest. The princess's frustration. The next morning, Alex found himself back in the arena, facing Taylora and another set of grueling challenges. She seemed even more irritable than usual, snapping at everyone and throwing Alex increasingly difficult tasks. "Is this really necessary?" Alex asked after narrowly dodging a weighted orb fired at him from a training drone. "I'm pretty sure you're just trying to kill me at this point." Taylora rolled her eyes. "If you can't handle a little pressure, you'll never survive in the Zirion royal court." Alex sighed, deciding to take a chance. "You know, I get it." "Get what?" she snapped. "Why you're so angry all the time," he said. "You've got the weight of your entire planet on your shoulders. It's not exactly a walk in the park." For a moment, Taylora looked taken aback, but she quickly masked her surprise with a scoff. "Don't pretend to understand me, human. You've only been here for a few days. You have no idea what it's like to live with this kind of responsibility." "Maybe not," Alex admitted, "but I know what it's like to feel like you're being forced into something you didn't choose." Her gaze softened slightly, But before she could respond, a loud alarm blared through the arena. The glowing walls turned red, and a metallic voice echoed through the chamber. Security breach detected. Intruders aboard the vessel. The ambush. T-Lara's expression hardened, and she turned to Alex. Stay here. Like hell, I'm staying here. Alex shouted, grabbing a training baton. If someone's attacking the ship, I'm not just going to sit around and wait to get vaporized. Before she could argue, the doors to the arena burst open, and a group of armed Zirithians in dark armor stormed in. Their weapons glowed with a dangerous blue energy, and their leader pointed directly at Alex. There he is. Take him. Alex barely had time to react before T-Lara stepped in front of him, drawing her own weapon. If you want him, you'll have to get through me first. The attackers hesitated, clearly not expecting resistance from the princess herself. But their leader snarled, she's protecting the human. Take them both. What followed was pure chaos. T-Lara moved like a whirlwind, her blade a blur of light as she deflected energy blasts and took down attackers with precise strikes. Alex, on the other hand, swung his baton wildly, doing his best to stay alive. Stick to my side, T-Lara shouted as she disarmed one of the intruders. I'm trying. Alex yelled back, narrowly avoiding a blast that singed his robe. This is not how I imagined my day going. Together, they managed to hold off the attackers until reinforcements arrived. The intruders retreated, but not before their leader shouted, "This isn't over. The resistance will not be stopped." A growing mystery. After the battle, Alex sat on the floor of the arena, his chest heaving. T-Lara stood nearby, her weapon still in hand, her face a mask of fury. Resistance? Alex asked, his voice shaky. What's their deal? T-Lara's jaw tightened. They're extremists who oppose the royal family. They claim to fight for freedom, but all they bring is chaos. Alex hesitated, thinking about what the hooded stranger had told him. Were the resistance really extremists, or was there some truth to their claims? Why were they after me? He asked carefully. T-Lara glanced at him, her expression unreadable. Because you're the key to the prophecy. If they take you out, they believe they can prevent the union and the peace it promises. Alex nodded, but doubt gnawed at him. Something about this whole situation didn't add up, and as he clutched the disruptor hidden in his pocket, he realized he might have to make a choice sooner than he thought. The growing bond. The aftermath of the ambush left the Zirithian ship buzzing with tension. Security teams patrolled the halls, and the once glimmering elegance of the vessel now felt oppressive. Alex hadn't seen T-Lara since the attack. He figured she was busy commanding troops or whatever alien princesses did after saving a bumbling human like him. He sat in his quarters, staring at the small disruptor hidden under his pillow. The stranger's warning echoed in his mind. The prophecy isn't about peace. It's about power. Was it true? Could he trust the princess? The resistance. Before he could spiral further into his thoughts, the door to his quarters hissed open. T-Lara stood there, her battle armor gone, replaced by a simple yet elegant tunic. She looked exhausted, her usual sharpness dulled. "Come with me," she said, her tone softer than usual. Okay," Alex replied, standing awkwardly. "Where are we going?" She didn't answer, simply gesturing for him to follow. Curious, and maybe a little worried, he did as she asked. A moment of vulnerability. T-Lara led Alex to a small observation chamber. The room was dimly lit, with a massive window that stretched from floor to ceiling, offering a breathtaking view of the stars. Alex had never seen anything like it. Planets and nebulae sparkled in the distance, their light casting soft reflections across the room. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. T-Lara stood by the window, her hands clasped behind her back. Alex shifted uncomfortably, unsure of what to say. Finally, she broke the silence. "Do you know what it means to carry the weight of an entire people on your shoulders, human?" Alex hesitated. Not really, no. I mean, I've had to pay rent for my crappy apartment, but I'm guessing that's not the same thing. Taylor let out a small, almost imperceptible laugh. No, it's not. She turned to face him, her golden eyes softer than he'd ever seen them. I've been preparing for this role my entire life. Every decision I make, every step I take is scrutinized. If I fail, it's not just me who suffers. It's my people, my family, everyone. Alex frowned, surprised by her honesty. That's a lot. No wonder you're so uptight. She raised an eyebrow. Uptight. I mean, focused. Alex corrected quickly. She shook her head, a small smile playing at her lips. You're not wrong. I am uptight. I have to be. But the truth is, I never wanted this. Alex tilted his head. What do you mean? This union, she said, her voice dropping. It's not just about the prophecy. It's a way to secure my father's legacy. If I fail, if the resistance succeeds, our empire will crumble. My people will be left vulnerable to outside threats. And yet, sometimes I wonder if they're right. Alex blinked. Wait, you think the resistance might be right? She looked away, her expression unreadable. I think they believe they are. They see us as conquerors, not protectors. I've spent my life trying to prove them wrong, but the harder I try, the more they fight back. For the first time, Alex saw her not as the untouchable princess who constantly belittled him, but as someone trapped by the expectations of an entire empire. A dangerous mission. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden chime from the walls. Taylor stiffened, her demeanor snapping back to its usual sharpness. What's that? Alex asked. An urgent message from my father, she said, already heading for the door. Stay here. Like hell I will, Alex said, following her. She shot him a glare but didn't argue, which surprised him. Together, they made their way to the throne room, where the king and several advisors stood around a holographic display. The king's expression was grim as he turned to them. The resistance has activated an ancient weapon on the moon of Kereth. If they succeed in powering it, they'll have the capability to destroy this entire ship, and Earth along with it. Alex felt his stomach drop. You're saying they've got a super weapon? Yes, the king said. And you, human, will help my daughter neutralize it. What? Alex blurted. I don't even know how to use your weird alien forks, let alone fight a superweapon. You won't be fighting, Taylor said, her tone clipped. You'll be helping me infiltrate the base. The resistance won't expect you. You're our best chance. Alex threw up his hands. Great, so I'm bait now. You're the key to the prophecy, the king said firmly. This is your destiny. Destiny's overrated, Alex muttered, but he didn't have much of a choice. Into enemy territory. Hours later, Alex and Taylor found themselves on the surface of Kereth, a barren, rocky moon shrouded in perpetual darkness. The Resistance's base loomed in the distance, a fortress of jagged metal and glowing red lights. Taylor led the way, her movements swift and silent. Alex stumbled behind her, doing his best to keep up without tripping over the uneven terrain. This place gives me the creeps, he whispered. Stay quiet, she hissed. As they approached the base, Taylor handed Alex a small device. This will mask your heat signature. The Resistance's scanners won't pick you up. Alex took it, fumbling with the unfamiliar tech. Why do I feel like this thing's going to malfunction at the worst possible moment? Because you're a pessimist, she said dryly. They slipped inside through a narrow ventilation shaft, the sound of distant machinery echoing around them. Taylor led them to a control room, where a massive console pulsed with red light. This is it, she whispered. The weapon's power core. If we shut it down, the Resistance loses their advantage. Alex stared at the console, his nerves kicking in. You want me to mess with that? I can barely work my microwave. Taylor rolled her eyes. Just follow my instructions." As she guided him through the process, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. And then, as if on cue, alarms blared, and the door slammed shut behind them. The leader of the resistance stepped into the room, flanked by armed guards. It was the same hooded figure who had given Alex the disruptor. "Well, well," the leader said, their voice dripping with disdain. "The princess and her pet human. How predictable." Alex's heart raced as the tension in the room reached a breaking point. Taylor stepped protectively in front of him, her blade drawn. "Leave him out of this," she growled. The leader smirked. "Oh, but he's the key to everything, isn't he? Tell me, human, have you decided where your loyalties lie?" Alex's hand brushed against the disruptor in his pocket. In that moment, he realized the choice wasn't just about him. It was about the future of two worlds. The final test. The resistance leader's voice echoed in the control room, their words dripping with menace. "Well, human, where do your loyalties lie? With the oppressors who enslave your kind, or with the ones fighting for freedom?" Alex's mind raced. The weight of the disruptor in his pocket felt heavier than ever, like it was burning through his skin. He glanced at Taylor, her golden eyes filled with defiance as she stood protectively in front of him. She looked ready to strike at a moment's notice. "I don't think I'm anyone's pet," Alex said, trying to buy time. "And I'm definitely not cut out for this hero stuff. So how about we all just take a step back and talk?" The resistance leader sneered. "Talk? There's no more time for talking. The weapon is nearly operational, and the fate of your planet hangs in the balance. Help us destroy the royal family's tyranny, and Earth will remain free." "You're lying," Taylor snapped. "You'll plunge both our worlds into chaos, just to prove your warped ideology. Better chaos than a lifetime of servitude." The leader shot back, raising a hand. The guards leveled their weapons at Alex and Taylor. "You have one chance, human. Decide." A desperate escape. Before Alex could answer, Taylor moved like lightning. With a flick of her wrist, she activated her energy blade and struck down the closest guard. "Run," she shouted, shoving Alex toward the console. "What?" Alex stammered. "You expect me to?" "Shut it down, Alex," she yelled, cutting off another attacker. "I'll hold them off." Heart pounding, Alex darted to the console. The screen was covered in alien symbols, none of which made any sense to him. "I don't even know where to start." "You're smart," Taylor grunted, dodging a blast. "Figure it out." As the princess battled the resistance guards with a ferocity Alex hadn't thought possible, he frantically scanned the console. His mind raced. The glowing red lines, maybe they indicated the weapon's power source. He hesitated, then pressed one of the symbols. The entire room shuddered. The humming noise that had been growing louder suddenly dropped in pitch. "I think I did something," Alex shouted over the chaos. "Good," Taylor said, kicking one guard into the wall. "Now finish it before we're overrun." But before Alex could figure out his next move, the resistance leader lunged at him, knocking him away from the console. The disruptor fell from his pocket, clattering to the floor. The leader's eyes gleamed as they picked it up. "Ah, so you had a backup plan," they said, turning it over in their hands. "Don't," Alex shouted, but it was too late. The leader activated the device, and the disruptor emitted a high-pitched whine. All the lights in the room flickered, and the console went dark. For a moment, everyone froze. Then Taylor's voice rang out. "You fool! Do you realize what you've done?" The leader smirked. "I've evened the playing field." The creature awakens. The ground beneath them shook violently, and a deep, guttural roar echoed through the base. Alex's blood ran cold as he turned toward the large chamber visible through a nearby window. Inside, a massive alien creature was stirring. Its body was a grotesque mass of glowing tendrils and jagged limbs, its eyes burning like twin suns. "What is that?" Alex yelled, scrambling to his feet. The heart of Kerith, Taylora said grimly, backing away from the window. The resistance must have been using the weapon to contain it. Now it's free. The leader's confidence wavered as they stared at the creature. That wasn't part of the plan. No kidding, Alex snapped. How about we all focus on not dying instead of playing politics? The creature let out another roar, and the walls began to crack under the strain of its movements. Without hesitation, Taylora grabbed Alex's arm. We're leaving. Now, what about the weapon? He asked as she dragged him toward the exit. Forget the weapon. If that thing escapes, it won't matter who wins this war. Both our worlds will be destroyed. An uneasy alliance. As they raced through the base's collapsing halls, the resistance leader and their remaining guards followed close behind. What are you doing? Taylora shouted over her shoulder. We're not dying here. The leader snapped. And if that thing escapes, we're all finished. Then help us. Alex shouted. We need to stop it before it gets out. The leader hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. Fine, but this doesn't mean we're allies. Whatever you need to tell yourself, Alex muttered. Together, the unlikely group reached a control room overlooking the creature's chamber. Taylora quickly scanned the controls, her fingers flying over the keys. The containment field is offline, she said. If we can reroute the base's power, we might be able to trap it again. That's a big if, Alex said, glancing nervously at the creature. It was already tearing through the walls of its chamber, its tendrils lashing out like whips. Then stop talking and start helping, Taylora snapped. Alex joined her at the console, his limited knowledge of Zirion technology forcing him to rely on her instructions. The resistance leader stood guard, their weapon trained on the chamber door as the creature's roars grew louder. The final choice. As they worked, Taylora glanced at Alex. If we fail, you need to get out of here. Take an escape pod and warn Earth. Alex frowned. What about you? She shook her head. I'll stay behind. Someone has to make sure this thing doesn't follow. No way, Alex said firmly. I'm not leaving you here to play the hero. We started this together, and we're finishing it together. Taylora looked at him, surprised, but didn't argue. Finally, the console beeped, and the containment field began to power up. The creature let out a deafening roar as energy beams shot out from the walls, forming a glowing barrier around it. It's working, Alex shouted. Not yet, Taylora said. We need to stabilize the field, or it won't hold. As she worked, the resistance leader turned to Alex. This doesn't change anything, human. The royal family still needs to be stopped. Alex hesitated, then nodded. Maybe. But right now, let's focus on surviving. With a final keystroke, Taylora activated the stabilization sequence. The containment field flared brightly, locking the creature in place. The base trembled, but the shaking gradually subsided. Alex let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Is it over? For now, Taylora said, her voice weary. But as they stood there, staring at the creature writhing within its prison, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that their troubles were far from over. The prophecy fulfilled. The containment field hummed, bathing the control room in an eerie, flickering light. The creature, the heart of Kerith, thrashed against its glowing prison, its tendrils slamming against the barrier. Every impact sent shockwaves through the base, and Alex could feel the vibrations deep in his chest. It won't hold forever, Taylora said, her voice sharp but edged with exhaustion. Alex glanced at her, his own breath coming in short bursts. She looked drained, her usually flawless composure cracked. He wanted to say something comforting, but what could he offer? Words felt hollow in the face of the chaos surrounding them. Behind them, the resistance leader paced, their weapons still in hand. We bought ourselves time, they muttered, but not much. That thing is tied to the power of this entire moon. If we don't destroy it, it will eventually break free. And next time, we won't be able to stop it. Destroy it? Taylor turned on them, her golden eyes blazing. Do you have any idea what you're suggesting? The energy released by its destruction would annihilate this entire sector of space, including your so-called freedom fighters. And what's your plan, Princess? The leader shot back. Keep it locked up forever. You know that's impossible. This is why your family can't be trusted. They cling to power without thinking of the consequences. Enough. Alex shouted, stepping between them. This isn't the time to argue. We need a solution, fast. Taylor's gaze softened slightly as she looked at Alex. There is a solution, she said quietly. The room fell silent. The revelation. Taylor turned back to the console, pulling up holographic projections of ancient texts and symbols. The heart of Kareth isn't just a creature, she explained. It's tied to the prophecy. The energy it contains can either destroy or unite entire worlds. That's why the Zirion royal family sought to control it for centuries. But the prophecy speaks of a catalyst, a union that can channel its power safely. Alex frowned. A union, like the marriage. Yes, Taylor said. The energy of the heart can be stabilized, but only if both of us, bound by the prophecy, complete the union ritual. The resistance leader scoffed. You're saying your arranged marriage is the solution to all this? That's ridiculous. Alex held up his hands. Hey, I don't like it any more than you do. But if it's the only way to stop this thing from blowing up the galaxy, I'll do it. Taylor gave him a small, almost imperceptible nod of approval. It won't be easy, she warned. The ritual requires us to confront the heart directly. It will test us, our strength, our resolve, and our bond. If we fail, we die, Alex guessed. Worse, Taylor said. The heart will absorb our life energy and use it to fuel its escape. Alex swallowed hard. Well, that's reassuring. Into the heart. The group moved quickly, making their way to the chamber where the heart was contained. The resistance leader reluctantly agreed to stand guard at the console, ensuring the containment field remained stable while Alex and Taylor stepped inside. The chamber was suffocatingly hot, the air thick with energy that made Alex's skin tingle. The heart loomed before them, a massive, writhing entity of glowing tendrils and pulsating light. Its roar reverberated through the room, not just a sound, but a feeling that rattled Alex's very soul. What do we do? Alex asked, his voice barely audible over the heart's thrumming presence. Taylor stepped forward, her posture regal despite the chaos around them. Place your hand on the heart, she instructed. Are you serious? Alex's eyes widened. Won't that, kill me? Not if we're connected, she said, holding out her hand. Trust me. Alex hesitated, but the sincerity in her eyes gave him courage. He reached out and took her hand. Her grip was firm, steady, and for a moment, he felt like they could actually pull this off. Together, they stepped toward the heart. The creature's tendrils lashed out, but the energy from their combined presence seemed to push it back. As they pressed their free hands against the glowing core, a surge of energy shot through them. The trial. Alex's vision blurred, and he suddenly found himself standing in a strange void. Around him, fragments of his memories floated, his childhood, his failures, his dreams. But there was something else too. He saw Taylor's memories, her lonely upbringing, the immense pressure she'd faced, and the quiet strength she'd built to carry it all. He turned and saw her standing nearby, her expression vulnerable for the first time. Is this part of the test? He asked. Yes, she said softly. The heart is forcing us to confront our fears, our weaknesses. If we can't overcome them, we'll fail. As if on cue, the void began to shift, and Alex found himself face to face with a twisted version of himself, a reflection that sneered at him. You think you can save the galaxy? The reflection taunted. You can't even fix your own life. Alex clenched his fists, anger boiling inside him. I've made mistakes, he said, his voice steady. But I'm here now, and I'm not giving up. The reflection smirked. But before it could say more, it shattered like glass. Taylora faced her own trial, a vision of her father, accusing her of being weak and unworthy. But Alex stepped forward, standing by her side. You're not alone in this, he said. Her father's image faded, and the void began to dissolve. The prophecy fulfilled. Back in the chamber, Alex and Taylora gasped as the energy of the heart surged around them. The creature's roars softened, and its wild tendrils stilled. The once chaotic energy became calm, glowing with a soft, golden light. It's done, Taylora whispered, her voice filled with awe. The heart began to shrink, its massive form condensing into a small, glowing orb that floated gently in the air. Alex reached out, and it settled in his hand, warm and pulsing faintly. What now? He asked. We take it back to the Royal Council, Taylora said. Together. A new beginning. As they left the chamber, the resistance leader watched them with wary eyes. So, what happens now? Taylora stood tall. Now we find a way forward, one that doesn't involve war or tyranny. The prophecy was never about control. It was about unity. Alex gave her a small smile. You're starting to sound like an optimist. Don't get used to it, she replied, though there was a faint warmth in her tone. As they boarded the royal vessel, Alex couldn't help but feel that this was only the beginning. He didn't know what challenges lay ahead, but for the first time, he felt ready to face them. After all, if he could survive being thrown into an intergalactic prophecy, he could survive anything.